begin the program. Just so you all know, we will be recording this session and we will be sending it out as a follow-up after the webinar. So welcome to Retirement Planning for Business Owners. How do business owners plan for retirement? What is the best way to save for retirement when self-employed? As a sole proprietor with employees, how do you develop an exit strategy or succession plan for your business? Mike Rogers, president of 360 Financial, will guide you through the essential steps you should consider as an entrepreneur to plan for retirement and an exit strategy for your business. Throughout the webinar, please add any questions to the chat section. We've allowed time at the end for a Q&A session. Also, if you'd like to learn more about 360 Financial and the services we provide to our clients, stick around at the end of the webinar for a few more minutes. We would like to know more about you and our thoughts on this webinar. So please take 1 minute to answer 8 simple questions at the very end. We will be sending out a survey. Now, I'll turn it over to Mike Rogers, president and founder of 360 Financial. Before establishing the firm in 1995, he spent 5 years building a solid financial base with 2 of the nation's largest investment firms. As a fiduciary, he specializes in his 30+ years of experience to orchestrate and implement customized strategies specifically tailored to address the issues and concerns of qualified retirement plan trustees, high-level professionals, and thriving business owners like yourself. Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Troni. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm going to stop screen sharing for 1 second. And here's why. I want to tell you a story, a little bit about me. Some of you on the call know me because we've known each other for years, maybe decades. And as Troni mentioned, I started a firm up in 1995 this month. So we're celebrating our 27th anniversary to not quite today, but in about 2 weeks. But I want to tell you a story about why I think I might be uniquely qualified to talk about entrepreneurship and how to save as an entrepreneur and plan for certain phases of life. You know, I'm going to go all the way back to, believe it or not, when I was 7 years old. And when I was 7, went into my mom's kitchen cabinet, you know, the one underneath the sink where all the Comet and SOS pads and the buckets were. And I emptied out a bucket, probably just left all the stuff on the kitchen floor. I took that bucket, walked off to the half bathroom that we had on that first floor, and found all of my dad's shoe shine polish and brushes. And I took those polishes and the brushes and I put them into that bucket, and I walked out the mudroom door. And that was my very first business enterprise. I had the Mike Rogers shoe shine business. As a 7-year-old, I went door to door finding customers who needed their shoe shine. There was no internet back then. There was no media. It was just flat out walking door to door. So I've had this in my blood, I think, ever since I was 7. And of course, after that followed all kinds of different businesses, lawn service business, driveway sealing business, gardening business, anything that I could do to try to generate some income so that I could go to college. And it worked out pretty well for me. And so I'll talk a little bit more about 360 later, but I think a lot of you on this Zoom meeting and this webinar could probably relate to that entrepreneur spirit. So I've got a lot of things that I want to cover here with you. And so I'm going to go back into the screen sharing and go into it. So again, thanks for joining us. There's a little bit higher level of importance than a good shoe shine, which I have learned is always important. But we're going to talk about some pretty specific things today. And it's really going to be focused around your succession and what that looks like. So the title of the program is Retirement Planning, but we know that retirement planning, contains all kinds of different elements, especially for business owners. And at a certain age, succession planning becomes very important. And what does that look like? And what have I been working on? Not that I'm going anywhere soon, but I am 57 years old, and I need to have a plan, not only for our clients, but also for the entire team 360 as far as what they can expect. You're probably feeling the same way. Okay. And we need to look at, of course, what we call your impactful financial events. And those are financial goals around, family. And what are your goals around that, around your occupation, your business in this case, and what does that look like or transcend into? Your lifestyle or recreational goals, what sort of things do you do for fun? And then as we develop this holistic approach to the planning process, then we can look at money, the investment spectrum, which has been a tough year to say the least, but how does that impact and how does it elevate your ability to reach those goals and put you in the best position, and where we can help you get in that best position for those positive outcomes that you're looking for. So today, I'm going to focus on a few different areas. First of all, part of it is going to be retirement plans and planning, because as business owners, there's some very beneficial plans that I want you to be aware of. Now, everybody can do what we're going to talk about. So I need you to talk to your financial advisor. If it's one of ours here, we have 8 of them at 360 Financial. We have 21 people on the team now. We have 2 locations, one here in Wayzata, one up in Elk River. So we've got lots of opportunity and lots of really good, powerful knowledge and processes to help you. But you need to talk to an advisor, whether it's us or somebody else, about some of the things that we're going to talk about. See if it actually impacts you, okay, and helps you. So we're going to talk about retirement plans. We're also going to talk about kind of ways to save and invest outside of retirement plans. And then we're going to talk about succession planning, and at least my thoughts around succession planning. So we're going to weave in and out of taxation, saving, succession, and then how that might all kind of pull together, and here in a relatively short amount of time. So I'm going to launch it off with, let's look at retirement plans. Okay, most of you, I'm assuming, have some sort of retirement plan set up. It could be as simple as an IRA. And what this flow chart here is showing you is, basically what do we need to focus on? Okay, and as the ice cream is showing, let's focus on some diversification. Okay, and look at different areas that we could save. So specifically, I'm going to highlight over here. Do you need an employee plan? Okay, that's the first thing. If you answer no, then kind of what do we look at? If you answer yes, where do we start going to? Okay, so an employee plan would be something that would allow your participants, your employees, to also put money away into a retirement account. If we're not needing that, and you're a small enough business, or you're a very successful, let's say, real estate agent, have your own practice, and you're within, the bigger aspect of a firm, and you set up your own LLC, then what you can do is you can look at things like a solo 401k plan that would allow you to put money into that, also do a catch-up contribution into that plan. You don't have employees besides maybe a spouse. Your spouse could be also involved in the solo 401k. Sometimes they're called 401k-Is for individuals. Sometimes they're called individual 401ks. We just use the terminology here of a solo 401k plan. So for that small entrepreneur who is just going, who wants to put money away either pre-tax into a traditional account, traditional 401k account, or after tax into a Roth account, the solo plan might be a good fit. Okay, so again, there's lots of different parameters that it works and it does not work. So talk to your advisor about how that might benefit you. How about if you have employees? So now we go down to the yes column. Yes, I have some employees. I need to look at a couple of different plans. So there's your traditional 401k plan. Okay, and we know kind of from the perspective, when we look at the traditional 401k plan, how much money you can put in is about $27,000 if you're over the age of 50. Okay, so, and that's for this year. It'll probably go up next year. $20,500 regular contribution if you're younger than 50, plus your $6,500 catch-up contribution. That's what gets you to the $27,000. Okay, so that's an important number. And again, pre-tax, we could take that whole $27,500 and we could take it out of your income. That reduces your income taxes. That money goes into your retirement account. Now it grows for you tax deferred. Okay. The other benefit that you might want to look at in the traditional 401k is adding the Roth 401k provision if you haven't done that yet. Most companies have at this point, but the Roth 401k is after-tax money where the dollars grow tax-free. So if you think that you're going to be in a higher tax bracket later in your life, and there's good arguments one way or the other that that could be the case, you might want to utilize the Roth 401k. Here's how I use the Roth part of a plan, because most of our clients aren't able to put money into a Roth IRA. So as a household, if you make more than 200,000 roughly, you and your spouse, you file a joint tax return, you're kind of limited. You can't really do Roth IRAs. Okay. So the Roth 401k gives us a planning bucket, if you will, of funds. Here's where I've seen it very well used, and here's where I use it. I take a lot of my deferrals and I put it into the Roth 401k. You're like, oh, Mike, you're paying taxes. You're probably at a high tax rate because your business has been around for a long time. You're a high income earner. That may or may not be the case, but what I want to impress upon you is that the Roth 401k gives me an opportunity to put money away in a tax-free account. Okay, it grows tax-free. So let's say somewhere down the road, maybe it's 12 years from now, and I'm 69 years old. My wife and I decide that we're going to move to Florida and we want to buy a house down in Florida. Okay, we might want to keep our Minneapolis house because the kids live here. And so we want to stay in the local area, at least in the summertime. And we want to be in Florida in the wintertime. Okay, I could use a Roth 401k sleeve of my savings to pay for the house and pull all those funds out tax-free. And if I had all my money in the traditional 401k and I needed to take a distribution from that 401k, that would all be taxable. So if a house down there is $1 million, I could pull $1 million out of my Roth account, of course, assuming I had that balance. I could pull them, and none of it would be taxed. Or I could pull $1 million out of my traditional 401k. That would be taxed at the highest income tax levels, most likely, at least under the current laws, which means I'd pay 37% taxes on the highest dollar amount, the marginal rate on those dollars. So what I coach people with is when we use a Roth or we use a traditional, how much do we put towards each of them? Okay. Now remember, your matching contributions from your company are another source of funds that will go into your retirement account. And so that's an area that could be 4% or 5%. I've got down here this avoid discrimination testing and use a safe harbor plan. That's what we have here at the office. Safe harbor plan says, no matter what the team contributes, I can max out the 401k plan. So I max out my contributions. But the trade-off is I have to offer a match, which I'm completely fine with. We're a financial advisory firm. I want to have one of the best 401k plans available for my participants and our employees. So we have a match. And the match is basically 100% on the first 3%. That's 2% on the next 5. So, basically it's a 4% match. So the employees get 4% and I also get 4%. So there's another benefit. That's a tax deduction for the company. It goes into my pre-tax account. So I don't get to stick that right into the Roth. Okay. On top of that, if we have consistent revenue in a business, and this is going to be a business that frankly is successful, that can also look at offering employees other advantages to savings for retirement that will also benefit the owner. Okay. So what we have down here is a cash balance plan and a profit sharing plan. It says with a profit sharing, you could have them separate. So here at 360, we have a profit sharing plan at every year. We also make a contribution to everybody who works here at 360. There's some parameters around this profit sharing plan. You have to be here the last day of service. You have to stay for a while. We do have a vesting schedule on the profit sharing contribution. We do not have a vesting schedule on the matching. That's part of a safe harbor plan. And so what you end up with is this blend. And we reward people for being here today, but we also are rewarding them for staying around for a while and helping us grow this business and be part of this business. Okay, so the profit sharing plan could allow me to receive as a business owner up to about another $25,000 if we maxed it out of tax deferred contributions into my retirement account. and it's also a deduction for the business. So hypothetically, let's say you have 5 employees, and then you're going to allocate based on, the way the numbers work, $50,000 towards a profit sharing contribution. You might have 4 employees that get half of that contribution. Again, these are just rough numbers, and they split that up, and they're very thankful because they're getting a contribution from the employer. And then as the owner, because your salary generally is going to be higher, unless you're taking it all in distributions, which is a whole nother topic. But if you're taking it as a salary, this percentage of the profit sharing is based on your salary. And so you can put more money into this profit sharing component and have more of it flow into your retirement account. Okay, so it's a benefit for the employees, it's a tax deduction, and it benefits you as the owner for taking the risk of running the business and starting it and everything that you've done as the entrepreneur. Okay. Now we could layer on top of that. This is especially powerful for business owners that are older, and I'm not saying you're old, but, maybe my age and up and through your 60s, and you look at a cash balance plan. And a cash balance plan is similar to a profit sharing plan from the perspective that it allows the company to put in potentially a large amount of tax deductible money for the participants. Here's where it's different. 401k plans and profit sharing plans are defined contribution plans. What does that mean? It means that what is being defined is how much is going into the plan. So 4% match. That is a definition of the contribution. Okay, cash balance plan is a type of pension plan. So that's a defined benefit plan. And so what that is doing is saying we're going to guarantee somewhere down the road a certain amount of money for our employee, again, based on their salary and their age. A lot of times we find that the business owner is the oldest one in the circle of trust at the business, as far as not only the leadership team, but also just from the employee base, because he or she started the business a while ago, and that seems to be the natural progression. Okay, you bring on younger people, that's part of your succession plan. But when we're looking at cash and we're looking at these sort of plans, we can skew as much as another $250,000. Yeah, $250,000 that could go in for the into the plan, and the majority of it, because of the age of the delta, the difference between the age of the employees and the age of the owner, a lot of it would be skewed towards the business owner. Okay. So you're saying, okay, Mike, how does that exactly work? We can go into more details. This is only a webinar to give you some overview on different things that you could do from a retirement planning perspective. I've been doing retirement planning for 30 years. Okay, so if you need help figuring out what might help you save more for yourself, for your employees, and create more tax deductions for your business, I think I'm a pretty good source for that. Okay. So I spent a good chunk of time on that space. I think there'll be questions that will probably come up afterwards, but I do want us to move on to other areas. Okay. So retirement is usually longer term dollars. We know that makes sense. Okay. And so when I look at those dollars and we look at things like a cash balance plan or a 401k plan, I just want to make sure that we're looking at, kind of everything that we could be taking a look at. So let's step back and look at shorter term dollars, and that's the liquidity aspect of it. Okay. And so when we're looking at it from a liquidity perspective, most business owners know, okay, I should have some money set aside, rainy day fund, if you want to call it that, just like you would do at your house, and your home, and having some money set aside to cover expenses. It's just good business sense, so you want to make sure that you follow that. That's the first step. But you also might want to look at, what other areas can get emergency funds and reserves from? Business line of credit is a great thing to have, obviously, in place before you actually need it. So that's one area of that makes a lot of sense to me. The other area that makes sense to me is when you're looking just at, collateralized loans. A lot of times it's called, bank wants some collateral, but you can use You can use your investment funds frequently. Let's say you have individual accounts or you have trust accounts. You can use those as kind of collateral for different places. I'm not talking about margins. You could set up margins. There's some risk around the margin call and around borrowing with margin. But just a collateralized loan, potentially low fees, low interest rates. We put this together a little bit ago. It's probably higher than 3% now. But it does give you the ability to use a stock portfolio or an investment portfolio to generate some cash. So there's different ways that you could use your current investments to drive the need for emergency funds if they come up. But the big thing is make sure that you have plans in place before they actually come up, because we know from the perspective of when the banks are most likely to lend you the money is when you least likely need it. So if you can get these in place, we have banking relationships. If you need somebody that you want to talk to about this, we can help you out with that as well. So that's the first step. Now let's look at the second step. A business owner's typically largest asset. It's not their 401k plan. It's not their house. It's their business. When you look at the business aspect, that's a lot of eggs in one basket. Actually, it might be one really big egg in that basket. And your business is not only your heart and soul of your income, but it might be the heart and soul of your identity. And so what I want people to think about is that identity sometimes skews your thought process. Okay. I've had business owners say, well, I don't want to pull money out of my business, maybe take a distribution on a monthly basis. And because I could just put it back into the business. I could buy another truck. I could buy some more tools. I could buy another location. We've brought on some new advisors and bought books of other advisors, books of business, we call it, as we grow, and so the mindset is just keep growing the business, keep growing the business. So let's stop that for 1 second and just take a look at the risk there. And this is part of my childhood again. I go into the risk of losing a business. You might say, well, I'll never lose my business. It's been around for 30 years, just like ours has been. We're profitable. We've been profitable for basically from the day two that I opened up the door. But you never know. And so I also tell people from a planning standpoint, we don't want to count completely on the liquidity of your business, whether it's through a succession plan that you organize or through buy-sell agreements, or something along those lines. We don't want to necessarily rely on that liquidity event to drive your ability to live the life that you want to live. Again, going back to our acronym of family, occupation, recreation, and money, FORM. And so what I encourage our business owners to do from this liquidity aspect is take a distribution on a regular basis from your business. Now, don't take so much that it jeopardizes the ability to buy that new truck or those new tools or hire that new person. Okay. But if you have the ability, let's say for an example, take $6,100 a month. I use that number on purpose. And you invest that. And every single month you invest that money. After 10 years, if you could make 6% on those monies, and after this market, this year, that seems in doubt, but bond rates have gone back up, stock rates generally earn anywhere from 8 to 10%. So 6% is probably not a stretch, but it's just a hypothetical number. So if you take $6,100 a month and you earn 6% on that money over a year, after 10 years, you'll have $1 million. Okay. So little increments add up to big dollars, especially when you get later into that compounding effect, in year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10. That's when you start getting the best compounding. It also provides liquidity for you. So going back to my example, in my case, let's say you decided you were going to move to Florida, but you wanted to buy a lot first. Now this account could be used for those liquidity purposes. Would you have some taxes involved? Probably some capital gains taxes, which is lower than income tax, but it gives you liquidity. But the only way you get this liquidity is kind of change the mindset a little bit and say, I'm not going to put everything back into the business every single month. Now, I know you can't do this when you're starting out, and you might not even be able to do it a few years into your business. But hopefully, if the business model works and you're profitable and you're consistently profitable, you can find a way to create that liquidity. That will be outside of your retirement accounts. That's a positive, and it will also be outside of the business. If you will, simplifying it, it's another bucket of money. Okay. So I think when you're looking at creating wealth outside of the business, this systematic monthly distribution is going to occur. I'm going to invest it is the best way of doing it. We're business owners. We get busy. You know, we're on the EOS system. I'm the visionary. I also meet with clients, and I also am responsible for networking and developing new clients for the firm. I've got lots of support, lots of great people to help me, but we're all business owners, which means we all wear hats that take us, different hats that take us in different directions. So set it up automatically. Again, work with your financial advisor, work with us if that's the case, but I think it's something that's very, very important. The other aspects are very important too, especially when it comes to cash flow and in emergency savings. So when we start looking at the debt piece of the equation, you know, saving money obviously is really important, but we also need to take a serious look at cash flow. And I think most of you are probably doing this. This is what you would do with your accountant. You know, we look at things that are, again, we've got a wide range of people that are on this call. People have been in business for decades. People have been in business for months. So, you know, when you start looking at cash flow, it's very, very important. Bottom right-hand side of this, let's see if we can get it to highlight it, that you keep really good documentation of your expenses, okay? And we strongly recommend that you keep them completely separate. You go and you get a business card if you don't have one, and you start building credit for your actual business. What you're trying to avoid as your business grows, you should be less and less responsible personally for the debt that the business incurs. You know, so some banks will mandate that you only that they'll only loan you money if you personally guarantee it. Other banks will look at your profitability over this time spectrum and look at your business as the guarantor to that loan. But the only way you can get to that is by keeping everything separate. Don't mix those personal expenses and those business expenses, and then grow that business credit, okay, and grow your business score. Okay. Yeah, we can help in these certain areas. We don't provide credit. We're not a credit instrument or institution. We don't have credit instruments like bank loans and those sort of things that we extend out to our clients. But we do have relationships with clients, with other banks that we can help you with that. Let's look at kind of number 4. Again, these are just business ideas. Now I'm kind of going into a little bit of the tax planning, because one of your impactful financial events is tax strategy. And not only meeting with your accountant, you know, now is a good time to do it, to plan for the rest of 2022 and what that income might look like and what your taxation might look like, but making sure that you're taking advantage of the qualified income business deductions. This allows business owners and its S corps, you know, to basically deduct 20% of their qualified business income. Okay. There are some trade-offs to this, though, you know, and one of the trade-offs is if you're a service business, they carved out this deduction for certain areas of the business ownership. And a lot of you on the call might fall into this carve out, and you know this because this has been around now for a few years. It came in under the Trump administration, started in the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is where it started. But they carved out this, what they call SSTB, and it's specified service, trades, or businesses, where you don't get the deduction. And it does include accountants. It includes people in the medical profession. It includes financial advisors. It includes attorneys. So it's kind of this personal service professional doesn't really get the benefit of a qualified business income deduction. But you would if you're a manufacturing company, you would if you're a creative agency, you will if you're an assembler of some sort of widget. So talk to you if you haven't talked to your accountant by now. Most of you know kind of where this comes into place. You might be able to get some deductions for the SSTB because some of it is based on income, either joint income or individual income. But again, we find that a lot of our clients make more than the phase out amounts, and so they're not able to take advantage of this. So again, we can have a conversation around tax deductions, around the qualified business income deductions. You might be better served looking at deductions around retirement plans or deductions around other sort of vehicles. If you're one of these professional service organizations that have done very well. Okay. Cover a little bit small business loans, and basically kind of some of the parameters around the SBA loans. The SBAs are a great source of income. What they do allow us to do is borrow funds at reasonably low rates, get approval. It's through a bank process, as you might know or might not know if you haven't done one. And you have to earmark what these funds are going to be used for. There's maximums as far as how much can actually be taken out for an SBA loan. If you're looking at expanding your business, you need to buy another business or you need to buy a building. These sort of things might be really good because you can use it to purchase equipment, make payroll, or finance exports. You just have to basically come up with a strategy on why you need these funds and apply through, your bank if they have it. We used to talk a little bit about the PPP loan forgiveness program. Most of you, if you get those Paycheck Protection Program checks, we probably forgot what PPP stands for. That's one thing that impacts this as well. But most of that at this point is kind of water under the bridge, as they say. But there are SBA loans that are specifically there to help drive some business growth. How about some other tax strategies that you might want to look at? Well, here's another one that we tell people to consider. Hire your kids. Okay. Some real benefits to hiring your kids. And depending on how much money they make, they could potentially get all of their benefits without paying any taxes at all. So you basically have a scenario where if you hire your kids, there's a couple of things that you have to do. The one thing you have to do is make sure they're actually doing something. Okay. So it's a little bit of a paying it forward process. You get your kids involved with the business. They learn about the business. They also learn kind of the value of what you have started and then how it works. And allowing kids that opportunity right there from a legacy perspective is probably very important. Okay. There's another opportunity from a finance perspective that, if you hire your kids, it's when you pay them a salary, that salary is now deductible. And if they're minor children, under 18, because I've got two that fit into that category right now, 15-year-old Brooke and 17-year-old Ethan, they're minor children. We don't need to withhold Social Security or Medicare taxes. Okay. So literally, if they get paid, $300 a week to clean the office, empty out the trash cans, then that $300 pretty much just goes to them. Okay. Now you might say, well, geez, Mike, I don't know if I want to just pay my kids, but think about the benefits of that. Now they've got $300 a week of income. Okay. And they're young, 15, 17, maybe they're 18, 19 years old. Now maybe they qualify for your retirement plan at work. And so they could put money away into a retirement plan. You could take all that money and put it into a Roth 401k. They would get, and if you don't have a Roth 401k, they can put it into a Roth IRA because there's no way they're going to make the income limits on the caps as far as how you can contribute to a Roth. So think about that. Think about a 15-year-old putting even a couple $1,000s a year for a few years into a Roth account, and it grows tax-free for 4 or 5 decades. That's a legacy account. You can help to set up a legacy for your kids along those lines. That is pretty powerful. Okay, so hiring your children creates a huge opportunity if you have the ability within your business to do so. Okay, so there's a few things on the chart here that talk about what I just mentioned, and the one thing that sometimes catches people off guard is this one over here, which is you can't pay your kids, with a personal check and then run it through the business. If you use ADP or Paychex or some other payroll service, you do have to, put your children into that payroll cadence, just like you do for the rest of your employees. Okay. So now we've talked a lot about business taxes. We've talked about retirement plans. Let's talk a little bit about building out a team. And this picture is interesting because I look a little younger, but you'll get back to a little bit about that story of when I started the shoe shine business. So I started up 360 Financial back in 1995. We had a different name now, but it's 360 Financial, has been for a couple of decades. And the goal of starting up the firm was I left the big Wall Street firm environment, and I left behind kind of their influence as far as you had to sell certain investments to people and it was all commission based, and there wasn't really any financial planning that was done, and there was certainly no 401k business that was consulted upon. It was sell somebody up, ask them if they want to buy a tax-free municipal bond or if they want to buy a stock from you, and then keep calling. So I had this mindset at the age of 30 because I was getting old. At the age of 30, that's what I thought, believe it or not, that I was going to take that leap and start up my own firm. Okay. And when I started up that firm, it was pretty, again, not pat myself on the back, because I think all of you have had the same leap of faith. It was pretty, I guess, revolutionary. Nobody left the big wirehouse environment to go quote unquote independent. Now it's pretty common. Nobody left the commission environment to go to a fee-based environment. Now it's pretty common. Nobody left the transactional part of the business to a planning, if you will, holistic approach. Now it's part of the business. Okay. So just like when you started your business, you saw an opportunity, you saw a niche, you took that leap. Okay. And while you're taking that leap, what you got to do is you got to find the right people to get them into the right seats so that they can help you get the messaging out, get the word out. Believe it or not, my very first office was literally the size of a closet, and it did not have one single window in it. Bottom left-hand corner probably shows our third office, which was over in Minnetonka. This here is me and Kirsten at one of our client events. I do look a lot younger. My hair was a lot darker. And Kirsten here was our very first hire, my very first hire. And she started with us 25 years ago, and she's still with us today. So there's a pure example of right person, right seat. And so what I would just recommend is that when you look at what you want to achieve out of the business, the only way you're going to get to it is by having people help you. You accomplish great things as a team that you can never accomplish on your own. And I know a lot of you know that, but there is an opportunity always when you're building out your team to look at, should I look at it internally or externally? And I'll get to that in a second, but because I want to also point out this view here. Can I highlight this? There we go. This is our office in Wayzata. We have windows, and we have a ton of them. And you can see, I thought it was very important to have windows in other offices as well. And we now have 2 locations. We got 21 people that work with us. And the only way I could have done it was by successfully building out a team. So when I talk about external and internal team members, you are in the middle. Okay, this is kind of building out your team. I almost call it from an external perspective. An internal perspective, you have to look at who you need to help run the business effectively so that you can grow and get to your goals, or what we call rocks, because we use the EOS system. Okay. But outside of that, when you look at who's going to be your coaches, who's going to help you, your manager, if you will, see that we have here. And here are the players. Who are the players on your team? And I think what you need from an outside perspective is somebody who's really good at tax strategy. Okay. That's a given. Most of you have CPA firms that you work with, but there's a difference between doing your returns and strategizing for minimizing your taxes. Okay. You need both. Maybe the same person gives both of those to you, but strategy is key to creating and building wealth. Okay. You need a bookkeeper. You need somebody to run human resources. You need somebody who can basically bring in business, whether that's you as the owner or somebody else. You need an attorney, and this is business valuation as well on the appraisal side. You need an attorney who can draft estate planning documents. This can get pretty messy if you unexpectedly leave this earth and you're not well prepared for that from an estate perspective. You don't care, but if you go back to our webinar that we did about leaving a positive legacy, having an estate plan is really crucial. And having a financial advisor on the team who's looking out for your best interest and wants to help you achieve these business and personal goals is crucial. So really, when you're looking at it, there's probably 6 people on your external professional team. And we can provide some of those areas for you, or we can recommend other firms to help you in that process. Okay. You also need to look at internally, what is it that you want to do? And so from an internal perspective, we need to develop a succession plan. And when we look at the succession plan concept, a lot of times I tell people, I just want to look at a couple of notes to make sure I don't miss anything, because this is really, really important. It seems to happen about the time you're 50, especially if you've owned the business for, a decade or two, and you start looking about, okay, what happens if I pass away? What happens if I am disabled? Or what happens if I just want to take a new path? Okay, and these are all kinds of different start of continuation plans, okay, or succession plans, if you will. So here's where that business valuation or business appraisal comes from. Let's first get a handle on what is this business worth, okay? And then we can start figuring out where do we want to go with this, okay? And so I recommend it's usually about a 3 to 10 year time horizon that we're going to implement a succession plan, okay? And I always say first, let's start with the family. So we've got our appraisal. Now let's go back, and do we have family members that are interested in the business? I just met with somebody today that bought his business from his father back in 1995, and he's been running it ever since. And his father started it in the 60s, and this business has gone through 2 generations, now trying to figure out what's the next path for the business. And is that a 3rd generation? Is that an external buyer? Is that a private equity firm? What is it that makes the most sense based on the family dynamics? So that's always the first place I think you want to go to, okay, as a business owner. Second place you want to go to is internally. Are there people on your team, again, getting back to the right person, right seat, that would be in a good position, have the right skill set, be able to grow the business and manage the business? And if that's the case, your succession plan could involve them. Or you potentially go to an outside avenue. So that would be more geared towards, private equity potentially, which is kind of a financial buyer. They are buying usually cash flow. They'll buy your business, but they want to come in and manage it to a certain extent. They probably want you to stick around for a number of years, typically 3 to 5. A lot of times it's hard for the business owner to actually stick around for that long a time period because the PE firm comes in and does things differently than what she has been doing for years. Therefore, it creates a little bit of a conflict, but that's aside. But there's outside buyers, either they're financial based or they're strategic based. So if you own paint shop, there might be another paint shop that wants to buy your business, and that would be a strategic buyer. And if somebody was just going to buy it as a financial buyer, they would tell you to run the business. We'll take part of the revenue from it, and then you'll create some liquidity. Okay, not one is better than the other. They're just different. And so what I like to tell people in this process, what you really want to make sure that you're doing is getting your finances in order. Okay, we've got a term in here. It's gloss up, and that could be negative. And from the standpoint of you're glossing it, you're making it shiny, it's better than it is. But really, what we're talking about there is put the finishing touches on your finances. Okay, just like lip gloss is the finishing touch. And a lot of times, if my wife and I are going out for a date night, okay, so the gloss up just make sure that you know exactly what your EBITDA is. You can go back to a private equity firm and maybe you can get 5 times EBITDA, maybe you can get 10 times EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, and deductions. But you need to know what that is before you can actually negotiate, a number based on, some sort of valuation. Remember that slide earlier where there's some personal money that comes into the business and some business money that goes into the personal account. Try to separate those. Get the business in as a profitable shape as it can possibly be, and keep the finances as clean as it possibly can be. Okay. I also find this concept of right person, right seat is very, very important. Because if you're not going to be around to run the business, who is? Maybe it's your family, maybe it's the employees, maybe it's an outside investor, but you need to have that framework of scale to make sure that the business can survive without you. That's why it's a 3 to 10 year process typically. So on the business side, you want to have a business broker probably on your side that can list it, or some sort of M&A or investment banking firm, depending on the size of your business. Okay, a valuation expert that can help you clarify what's the value today. But if this is a 3 to 10 year process, how can we make the value exponentially higher over the next couple of years, especially if it's going to be an external sale? Okay, attorneys, of course, are crucial in this process, as well as your tax advisor and your financial advisor. And the financial advisor should be working with your M&A attorney and your tax advisor to figure out what to do with this liquidity event when it does occur. Okay, and we can talk a little bit after the end of the program about what might be some ways that you invest that money, but I don't want to do that right now at this point. If you can get your finances in order, you can quote unquote gloss them up, make some finishing touches, look at where are you going to take your business, and who's going to be the best buyer of that business. You'll set yourself up for the best multiples, and you'll also set yourself up for the buyer to be the most successful. And that's really, at the end of the day, probably what you want with your business. So I think, based on everything I've covered, I'm done. And so there's a lot of things that we had talked about here. I'm going to have Troni jump back into the presentation to see what Q&As that we had. I'll stop screen sharing. We are here as a soundboard, and I'll talk to a sounding board with any ideas, concepts, things that you want to talk about. I also would be remiss not to. We didn't talk about investments today, but because we're a registered investment advisory firm with the Securities and Exchange Commission, we do have to always have some sort of disclosures that talk about risk in the stock market and the bond market. And so these disclosures are part of that. Okay. So I'll go back to the Q&A slide. I will stop sharing. And Troni,
I am here.
I've talked. Has anybody sent you questions?
We do have a couple questions here, and my video will not go on, so if you can bear with me. One question is, how does the backdoor conversion of a traditional IRA work to build into the Roth?
Okay. So there's a couple of different ways here. It depends where you work. Okay, so if you're a bigger organization, you're not a business owner, but maybe you run an entity for a bigger organization, and you run it as a business owner. You're responsible for all the things that we just talked about, but you work for a bigger company. Look at that 401k plan and see if you can do an after-tax contribution into that plan. Okay, now I'm not talking about a Roth contribution. I'm talking about an after-tax contribution. If you have the ability to do that, and there's testing requirements, that's why this typically only works with bigger companies. Or if your company itself maybe has 500 people to 1,000 people, this might work, because we do run into discrimination testing. But you could take money after tax from your paycheck. You can move it into the Roth, you can move it into the traditional 401k plan. Okay, so it's not after tax going to the Roth, it's after tax going into the traditional 401k plan. And it would be a separate sleeve. That's called your after-tax contributions. Okay. You can then take those funds and you can move them over to a Roth 401k, or maybe a Roth IRA, but let's just keep it in the framework of your business 401k plan. Okay, so there are some ways to do this. You run into testing issues when you're trying to do it within 401k plans. The other way you can do a backdoor Roth conversion is you can take money from your IRA and you can convert it into a Roth account. Okay, and you say, how do I do that, Mike? Well, it's a little tricky, and it is based on the ideal world. You don't have any IRAs except for this one. So all of your money, for example, might be in the 401k plan, but you have one IRA account. And you can't deduct that IRA because your income's too high. But you put in your $7,000. And then the next day you move it to your Roth IRA account. Okay. And then you start building. So you never could deduct it in the first place. And now you just shifted it from tax deferred to tax free. Okay. This works pretty well if you only have that one IRA account that you're doing. And this is what the strategy of a backdoor IRA is frequently, or backdoor Roth IRA conversion is. Where it becomes problematic is if you have 2 or 3 different IRA accounts, then you have to run the numbers, because now it's done on a pro rata basis and it might not benefit you. Talk to us about it. We've got the numbers. We know how to run the scenarios that determine if it would make sense for you. The other thing you might want to consider, let's say you own a stock that's way down in price this year inside your IRA, you could convert that to Roth money with the anticipation that that stock is going to come back up in value. And therefore you're converting a lower valued stock, hopefully, to a higher valued stock somewhere in the future by making that tax-free shift to a Roth. The caveat there you just have to be careful is how much income will that generate this year and what income tax bracket are you in. So really I brought in 3 different elements to that: 401k backdoor conversion to a Roth 401k, Roth IRA conversion, and the traditional IRA to Roth backdoor conversion. Clear as mud. Give me a call. We'll figure it out together. Troni, any other message or any other?
Yes. I think I saw my video. I'm back in. And, as an entrepreneur and doing this for 30 years, do you have any resources or things that have inspired you? Maybe some books or some resources that you could share with the group?
Well, if you know me at all, I'm a pretty positive guy, and part of my resources is I do read a lot of inspirational messages. I'm a big believer in positivity over negativity every single day. I know there's lots of things to be negative about. There's also lots of things to be extremely positive about, and that is what we try to focus our energy on. I'm a big believer in whatever you focus your energy on is where you end up. And so if I want to focus on what I don't want, I'll end up over there. If I focus on what I do want, I'll end up over in that area. So there's a lot of inspirational aspects I'd be happy to share with somebody who wants more information on that. From a framework around the business, we implemented and really have worked very hard over the last few years implementing what's called the EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System. It's a book based off of Gino Wickman's writings called Traction, and what the book does is kind of help you lay out a framework for how your business should be organized, and also how do you get the right people into those right seats, and how is everybody accountable for the betterment of the business, and less about their individual needs. That doesn't sound quite right, but the goal here with EOS is setting up roles and responsibilities for everybody in the organization, setting up departments so people know what they're supposed to be working on, and that provides accountability. And then as the owner of the business, you can step out of a lot of these departments because you got the right people running them and you count on them to do their job. I was famous for this, where I would, jump into John, who's compliance expert, for us here at the firm. I'd jump into compliance and I would muddy that up. And then I would jump over to operations and the service team and muddy that up. Sometimes you just have to, as the book says, let go of the vine, trust on your people. And if you haven't read EOS and you're a smaller business, doesn't matter if you've been around for 10 years or 20 years, smaller being anywhere from 5 employees to probably be 2 employees, up to 300 employees. I think you would find a lot of value in that book called Traction.
Great, thank you for that. And I'll just recap that we will send out the webinar in the presentation, and we'll leave a reference for the Gina Wickman book when we do that follow-up. So that will conclude our Q&A session. If you're interested in 360 Financial, learning a little bit more about us as a company, Mike will continue on. But Mike, I would ask maybe you would screen share to roll through the disclosures, and then we can move into the 360 portion of the presentation. Thank you everyone for attending. We hope this was helpful. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Emily Moore, and or Mike himself. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, everybody. I will go through the disclosures again. There's the phone number. That's the main number. If you have any questions, you can always call me directly, 952-595-5555. 595-5555 is my direct number here at the office. And my email address is mrogers@360financial.net. So you can personally reach out to me if there's anything that I can help you with. And maybe somebody in our office would be better to help you. If that's the case, I'll just make that connection. Okay. So talked about the disclosures already. Let's talk a little bit about what we do here at 360 for the ones that have stuck around. A lot of you know this already if you're working with us and have been, but basically we focus on a process that we call the life wealth planning process. Okay. And it's really focused on what matters to you as a client. So when we talk about entrepreneurs and we talk about business owners, they have certain areas that are just important to them. And we want to build a framework around those areas. And it's real simple. If we work with you to enrich your life, that's our motto, to enrich your life. We do it by navigating and leading you through your impactful financial events. Talk about that in a second. We have to focus on goal-based planning. And this process focuses around 4 main areas: your family, your occupation, and your recreation. Okay? Those are areas that usually matter the most to our clients. Okay? As a matter of fact, family is usually number 1. That's why when I look at what makes us different, it's generational planning. We literally have clients that have 3 generations with us as clients. And that's the power of generational planning, and really comes up with this ability to look at form. These are the whys. The how is the money. The money is the gas in the engine. It's going to drive us and propel us to get to these family, occupation, and recreation goals. So first thing we have to do is figure out what those goals are. And you know what? Those goals change. People come into the family, they go out of the family. People get married. My oldest son, Zach, and his long-term girlfriend, Keelan, are now engaged. So she'll be coming into the family. Let's see what happens as far as them having kids, and then where does that go from a legacy planning perspective and how my goals will change around that. I have 6 kids, all in different phases of their lives. So this family component changes frequently. Okay. And a good financial plan should be flexible enough to accommodate changes. Okay. Then we want to look at what we can control. And this year, unfortunately, is a great example of what we can and cannot control. Unfortunately, we can't control the stock market. We can't control what Biden's going to do or not do. That's not a political statement. Say that if Trump was in the office. We can't control what's going on in Russia and the Ukraine. It's a tragedy, what's going on there and the loss of human life. But we don't have control over that aspect of it. I know what we can control. And that's first of all our philosophy and our discipline of an investment process, okay, which is the 3 Ps. We have philosophy, we can control that. We believe in the future. We are optimistic. We have 6 core values that we follow as a firm that also resonates in the way that we work with our clients. We have a planning process that we can control. And that planning process is based on 3 aspects. Let's discover what matters to you. Let's design a plan that makes sense for you. And then let's deploy it or implement that plan and make sure that we monitor it on a continuous basis. And then we have a process. And the process really comes anywhere from our 90-day no contact process, which means that we reach out to clients on a regular quarterly basis, to our emails that go out every Wednesday that are talking about investment updates, or to our webinars to help provide more education. Okay, so those things we can control, and we can control those with our clients and with you as a partner. Where the 2 meet up, what matters to you, what we can control, that's the sweet spot. That's where our life wealth plan fits in. And our life wealth organizer is literally a binder that our clients receive that has all of their important planning documents in that, that they can be utilized anytime as needed and can be updated on a regular basis. Okay. So again, what we want to be focusing in are these impactful or critical financial events. We just talked a lot about business planning. Business owners have specific things that they need to be concerned about. We just talked about that. But most people also have to be worried about retirement and what's that paycheck going to look like, tax strategies and looking at trying to implement strategies while you can implement them, not when you show up at the CPA in February or March, because by then that tax year is done. There's not a lot of changes that you can do. Okay. Let's look at the investment strategy. We're in a bear market. We have gone through bear markets in the past. Are we in a recession or not? That's a conversation that is valid today. Maybe it wasn't a year or 2 ago, but it is today. And look at how does that impact our family security and the ability to pay for our kids' college, or how do I manage if God forbid that my spouse passed away. There's not only the emotional aspect of that, but there's the financial aspect of it, just as there is for any health event. Okay. And the legacy piece is that generational planning. How do we leave in the most tax-advantaged way our assets? What are our giving strategies from a charitable contribution perspective? And how do we maximize that? If it's of interest to you, and also come up with a strategy to use that as a tax advantage to us. So you can see sometimes these strategies could overlap. Okay. But the planning, the life wealth plan, is what measures, are we having the outcomes, and are we monitoring this correctly? Okay. We talk about investments. A lot of our clients want to know what our investment process is. And I can tell you that we don't have, the magic ball that tells us when to be out of the stock market and when to be in the stock market. we do make adjustments. We've made adjustments this year, but it's been a very difficult year for everybody. We're not market timers. We believe in a strategy where we have a foundation of investments based on how much risk we have assessed is appropriate for you and your family. And then we manage a portfolio of assets based on your goals, based on your risk, and based on looking at kind of what we think is most likely to do well in a certain economy. So we have this foundation aspect, which is your pure diversification strategy. And if you're in a growth strategy, 80% of your money will be in the stock market, 20% will be in fixed income or cash. Okay, and then there, when we're looking at there's fixed income, maybe alternatives and that strategy. But when we're looking at stocks, we're looking at innovative companies, dominating companies, and dividend-paying companies are really the core of the foundation. And we use low-cost exchange-traded funds to typically drive this, or institutional mutual funds to drive this part of the foundation piece. Okay. In addition to that, what we're trying to figure out is where are there opportunities right now? Whether it's a good market or a bad market. So is there opportunities in energy stocks or healthcare stocks or infrastructure stocks? And again, can we utilize exchange traded funds to give us some diversification into these different leadership or sector allocations? And so for a quote unquote aggressive growth portfolio, we could have as much as 20 to 25% of the portfolio geared towards this leadership approach. And for a more moderate type of strategy, you end up with a scenario where it's less than that. Okay. So the strategy that we've been doing has been very helpful, but our life wealth process also drives these outcomes. So here's how we work for you who are new. You come onto the office, or you jump on a Zoom meeting with me and or the appropriate advisors in the office, and we have a fitness check. And we use the word fit here really to say, is there a good fit? You're learning about what our services are, and we're learning about what you need. It's a conversation. And we'll ask you some questions like, what's important to you? What are we saving for? What do you want to see your legacy to look like? Okay, so it's about an hour conversation. And at the end of the hour conversation, we decide if we're going to move into another part of called the Fit 2.0, where we said, here's what we heard you need at the second meeting. Here's how we think we would solve it. But we haven't gone to the point where we've actually set up a plan for you because we're still in the discovery process. Okay. So we have a fit meeting, and then we have another fit meeting. Fit 2.0 is what we call it. And we determine at that point, does it make sense to move forward? Do our services align with your needs? And if they do, we move on to the go stage or get organized stage. And that's where you start working with the advisors, and we start assembling your plan. We gather all the information around your expenses, your other liabilities that you have, your assets, your tax returns, your estate planning documents. We start looking at what are your goals based on our conversation of what matters to you, and how are things laid out currently. And let's organize that in one manner so that we can start building out your life wealth plan and implement a plan based on what matters to you. Okay. And then a plan is set in motion, but that's just the start. We've got to review and realign your goals, your wishes, your needs on an annual basis at least, so that we're always trying to maximize your family's best outcomes. So find frequently a lot of times where there's a gap for people who come in who are new is they may have done some of this, You know, they found an advisor they thought they would get along with and they trusted, and they maybe organized some of their finances, and they might have even set up a financial plan of some sort. Maybe it's just a simple spreadsheet, but something. But then this key piece of reviewing and realigning that. So this thing basically comes full circle. Hence our tagline, big picture planning, and our name, 360, wraps around this entire process. So, you know, at the end of the day, some of you just don't even know us yet, and I appreciate you sticking around. If you want to learn more about what we do, if we can be a sounding board to help you with certain situations, just set up a call, set up a Zoom meeting, you know, come on into the office. We're just in downtown Wayzata, right on Lake Street, and we'd be happy to have a conversation over a cup of coffee and see what it is that we can do that might benefit you and your family. With that, I think it gives a nice overview of our process and how we work with our clients. I'll turn it back over to you, Troni.
Yes, that will conclude our program. And as I had mentioned before, we will send out the presentation with the webinar, the reference to the book, and there will be a little survey, a little quiz at the end. We would love your input, feedback. So please take a moment to provide that for us as well. Thank you again for your time today.
Thanks, everybody. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye.